Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Welcome, dear listeners. Today, I'd like to delve into the life of another dear Mufassir, eminent scholar, Islamic scholar, and he is Imam Fakhruddin Razi. So he was born in the year of 1149 in Iran. And, we've had a lot of scholars from the outskirts of the immediate as our expansion happened. And this was the era, again, of, if I'm not mistaken, of Harun Rashid or not, but whatever it's called, the golden era of our Islamic tradition. And just not to mistake him, there was one earlier who was known as, his name was also Razi, Raziuddin Muhammad Umar Razi, and he came in the 1800s, in the 800 to the 1900s, which is the 9th and 10th century. So he was a Persian physician, chemist, philosopher, and he was the one who was in the golden era. And lots of contributions he made in medicine and that. So, maybe we'll look at him when we're looking at inventors and the discoverers, but so not to mix them up. He came first, that a medical person or who made those discoveries. But the one I want to talk to you about, because I want to look at the Mufassirs every week, and he is Fakhruddin Razi, and he's known as Imam al-Razi. He was also polymath. Polymath means they were really broad-based, they were experts on a lot of things of whatever was information there. So they were hufaz, they knew the hadith, and they did a lot of discoveries. So he was he contributed in many fields, which included theology, philosophy, Quranic exegesis, and his famous one is known as Tafsir al-Kabir. Okay, and so he also laid the foundation in from his scholarly achievements, because, mashallah, Allah graced him with exceptional intellect, him and many others from a very early age. So they used to be hufaz from the early age. And, if we want to, and we do often delve on, we say, wow, how did they know so much about so much and everything? We always come back to this idea of, and why do we need to connect with the Quran? Why do we need to connect it with it in Ramadan so much more? We shut down other doors of being busy with sports, being busy with the malls, and being busy with other things. And what that does is your mind is free for this. So I remember somebody said, how come they had so much memorized, or they could? Because our mind wasn't cluttered with the mundane dunya. And how much information we take in of this shop and that shop and comparing prices and everything, that's what our mind is full of. Whereas theirs wasn't, so that's why they were able to achieve so much more. And so he did the traditional Islamic studies of his time and so on much later. So his Tafsir al-Kabir, it's called, the great exegesis, and it stands as one of the most celebrated works, again, in the Quran. So while we've heard of the Tabari, one, I'm trying to go a little bit chronologically. So the next big one, and it was written in a unique, eloquent style, and to unravel the deeper meanings. So he had a rational approach, a philosophical approach, and trying to harmonize reason and revelation together. My interest in him is to know, because now modern day Mufassirs often trace back to him the idea that he brought into the tafsir, that there is a coherence, that while he included linguistic analysis, historical context, he kept trying to say that there is it's not random or haphazard. So that's what he is being attributed to, that it was a comprehensive guide, but in a sort of a coherent fashion. That's where most modern Mufassirs who are striving to find a coherence, a theme, working through it, they will then refer to him. And he because of his background on the sciences, he was able to elucidate from those Quranic verses that refer to the natural sciences, to the natural phenomena, and he brought that into it. So with this interdisciplinary approach that he had, and these are just automatic consequences of we being influenced by our society, the interdisciplinary nature of our knowledge of how it happened. Later, it got bifurcated: all scientists here, all historians here, all that there. But it was all put together, and it's meant to be. It's holistic. So he brought all these facets of knowledge into his exegesis. And again, it's one of those which is not so readily available in English to know, but you need to know that it is this Tafsir Kabir. And I haven't myself read a hard copy of Tafsir al-Kabir. I've had references to it. I've gone to those references to have a look. But so I'm also going through secondary sources to give you an idea that Fakhruddin Razi was a very great Mufassir of his times also, and he too is used as another template for future Mufassirs to back him and look at reference books. So you can actually say that what I want to share with you, or what I'm sharing with you in this Ramadan in your reading, is reference books. It's reference books and reference authors that you need to know about. And when you are looking at any book, at their book, the beauty is in our tradition we were given and told a lot about the author, because knowing the author is as important as reading what his book is. So with the Mufassirs, these Tabari was the first one I brought up last week. Then this week it's going to be on Fakhruddin Razi, and how each individual's knowledge is obviously incorporated in what he wrote. So he had profound contributions, and then he also faced scholars that sort of said that when you try to be too rational, it's a potential conflict with traditional theological views. So different strokes for different ways, but it's a very valid, what we call within the conservative mainframe Muslim Sunnah of the Muslim majority, that he is drawn into helping others take it further of what is it. So again, the depth, the holistic way, and it brings insight to it. I am not the one to be critiquing him or taking it, but when I listen to other Mufassirs and they make reference to him, I know where he's coming from. The other thing which was interesting to know from him is because this is at the time when, there's a lot of discussion. We have had sectarian violences. We've had the mazhabs developing. Then we've had the taqleed concept when you just need to follow the one and not the others. So he also is known for his school of thought was the Ash'ari and not the Mu'tazilite. Inshallah, just from these words, you need to go and look those terms up and what they were and what was happening in history of those times. So within the he was from the dominant school of thought which emerged, which was the Ash'ari school, and other Mufassirs then took it a lead from there and took it away from there. And I'm not, you can just see from my fumbling, is that I'm not an expert on all these things, but I wanted, so he wasn't a Mu'tazilite. He was known for his Ash'ari theology, but and that is what developed as a response, so there was this whole debate between the two, but that's not where I want to go. While they were very strong on rationality, on the use of intellect and reasoning, the Ash'ari school where he belonged, he reconciled reason with revelation. We always have to say, if Allah said so, Allah said so. We can't go around discussing it. But because he did a bit, he was also criticized. No, you can't do that, and so on. But he then later, after him, the ones after him that came was Imam Ghazali, and inshallah we will look at him too as a philosopher. So philosophy, reason, logic, they all went in hand in doing overviews of looking, because and the beauty of the Quran is that it appeals to baseline, it appeals to people interested in nature, to those interested in history, to every level. And it was beautiful that somebody, and it's all intermixed. So somebody beautifully said that at different places in the Quran, for different hearts will resonate for that. And you randomly pick it up and it just speaks to you, and it speaks to what your situation is. So every generation is able to a fresh look and draw from the Quran things of value which maybe Imam Tabari didn't look at, Imam Razi didn't look at, but today for democracy, from xenophobia, from Islamophobia, whatever it is, for this situation, we will be able to extract different things. So I'm just stepping out of my realm or out of my domain of what I should be, but this is what does happen. And he was, again, within his framework of his timeline, looking at what he had available to him. That's what he brought to the fore. And for me, what was very interesting is because today we have something called about the coherence of the Quran, about seeing it as a thematic thing, that one ayah links to the next, one surah links to the next, where one finishes, the other picks up, and where the other ends, the other one picks up. And there is the surah, in fact, means like it's a citadel, and there's everything to do with that. So there's talk of akhirah, there's talk of nabuwa, of Risala, and of Tawheed primarily. And in putting them all together, today our dominant theme, again, to fight the Orientalists, to fight Islamophobia, we say, no, our Quran is very, very coherent. And, the beauty is that we don't always have to see Western parameters to justify our beliefs or our things. The barakah that you get out of everything is beyond, it's an intangible. The West cannot understand how the iman of somebody who's so oppressed as the people of Palestine were, how can they still survive? How can they still be okay? Those intangibles is what also need to surface. So while we are reading, while we are being intellectually empowered, at no point must we lose sight and touch of being, not knowing that ultimately it's our intention, it's Allah's mercy that He puts barakah into whatever we do and whatever goes forward. It's never my success. Success all comes from Allah. And the beautiful thing, one of the authors said, is that they said, no success is success if it doesn't have Iman. And it's Iman that's a pivot, that is the intangible, invisible thing that we have inside us that carries us through. So here is another name I want to leave you with, Fakhruddin Razi as a Mufassir, to know that he in history brought us something beautiful for the development of when we were reading the Quran, and they were very closely linked with the Quran. So with that, I pray it's been beneficial, whatever I've had to say. And Subhana Rabbika Rabbil Izzati Amma Yasifun, wa Salamun al Mursaleen, walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.